thanks for the invitation. Can you
Uh,
hear me, guys?
yeah, Vivek, you are audible and your screen is also visible to us.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, thanks for the invitation to deliver a talk on the projects that I've been working on. So apparently, my project was more towards on the fabrication. I had some applications where I worked on the photonics or plasmonic applications. So I try to align my talk for the application oriented. So I think that's a goal of this series that is being organized. So without being further delay, let me just get started. This is going to be the outline of my talk. I'm going to talk about a bit of nanostructure fabrication, why it is important and what are the different methods that are available, and what kind of work that I've been doing with focus and beam and why it is important. And next part of my talk is going to be fabrication of different sublevel nanostructures. I primarily work on silicon, and I have few structures that I did with graphene as well. So I'm going to talk about the fabrication and specific applications for those nanostructures. Then I'm going to further talk about the indirect method of fabrication with focus and beam that includes implantation and wet etching. And then I'm going to go ahead and explain the further manipulation of these nanostructures that we can fabricate with focus and beam, and control these nanostructures through strain engineering for desired functionality or applications. And then finally, I'm going to conclude by talk, based on the work, and talk a bit about the future work that is being done in my group right now. Okay, to talk about the applications of 3D nanofabrication, we have already seen a huge research area being done over the last decade or two. So there have been tremendous applications of 3D nanofabrication, right, starting from the plasmonics or optics, and for X-ray focus or light trapping using the nanostructures, and it has got applications in biofield as well. So people have been working on fabrication of nanostructure for multifunctional biophotonic applications and surfaces such as antibacterial surface. And these nanostructures can be designed based on the functionality. These can exhibit highly, super hydrophobic properties or extreme pressure resistance as well. So based on the application, these nanostructures are very important, and can exhibit a functionality in a wide domain of science. Now, coming to the focus and beam, why it is important and why we need to go to focus and beam for the fabrication. The first and foremost advantage is it allows direct fabrication of nanostructures. It doesn't require any mask, and you are basically good to go just by having the focus and beam on your sample. So by moving ahead the focus and beam from one spot to another, you can basically write the patterns in your sample and you can fabricate any structures you want. Now, of course, there are few limitations with focus and beam. The first and foremost is it allows implantation of whatever source you are using. So usually gallium, xenon, nitrogen or oxygen kind of sources are used. But with further advancement of instruments, we are now seeing helium and neon sources as well. So those are pretty much low implantation, but the limitation again is the mailing rate. And in apart from these advantages and limitations, there are few advantages with focus and beam. So pretty much you can use focus and beam for multiple applications. Like you can do imaging with this. So focus and beam can interact with the surface and lead to the generation of secondary electrons, which you can collect using a detector, and you can image the surface. And it has several advantages when you compare it to scanning electron microscopy, as we call it SEM. So you can find out the contrast difference between the two elements. So basically SEM won't produce much difference in the contrast, or you won't be able to identify different materials if you are imaging a sample. But with focus and beam, you can definitely find out the differences. And of course, you can use it for milling applications by just having a high energy beam of ions scanning over the substrate, and also it can be used for the deposition. So in case of deposition, you have a precursor gas which is already sprayed over the surface, and you dissociate the molecules which are absorbed on the surface using the focus and beam. So this way it has got pretty much a large area that focus and beam can cover, and that's what make it important in the field of semiconductors, in the field of optics, in the field of biology, and so on. Okay, so I'm going to now converge back to the micro nano fabrication with focus ion beam. So there could be multiple ways we can use focus ion beam for fabrication of different nanostructures. It could be based on direct milling approach, where you just use the focus ion beam for fabrication of nanostructures or microstructures, or it could be based on the lithographic approaches, where you create a mask on the substrate first and then use subsequent etching based methods to fabricate the nanostructures. And you can use gas assisted deposition or etching for fabrication of nanostructures as well. So what we observe is focus ion beam is quite slow. So you can improve the milling or deposition using a gas in the chamber. So that improves the deposition or etching rate. And of course, you can use focus ion beam just similar to the argon ion beam for material self-polarization. So the advantage with this method is you can have a very tiny scale nanostructures, and you can of course also go below nanometer scale as well. So one of my colleagues is Lamit is working on this method, and he has been able to observe nanometer scale structures, and I think close to 1 nanometer as well. And of course, you can use focus ion beam for bending application that I'm going to talk about. And you can use focus ion beam implantation methods for growth as well. So what you can do is you can selectively implant the material, and you can use epitaxy based methods to grow material of your choice. So those are kind of different methods that we can categorize using the focus ion beam and different fabrication methods. Okay. Now, the key challenges in focus ion beam fabrication are first and foremost is going to be the ion solid interactions. So we need to have a good understanding how the focus ion beam is going to have interaction with the material that we want to, fabricate or deposit or any particular operation. And the next thing is the sweater yield, beam tail effect, overlap, and redeposition. So what happens whenever we are having a focus and beam interacting with the surface, it leads to the sputtering of material. So the material sputtering is dependent on the angle of incidence. So with us, as we go ahead with the sputtering, the profile of the surface changes, and the sputter yield is also different. So we need to be sure about the sputter yield dependence on the angular incidence. And focus ion beam doesn't have a circular or perfect flat cross section, so it kind of has a Gaussian distribution of the incoming ions, and which produces the beam tail effects and leads to the uncontrollable sputtering. So we need to have a way to find out a balance between the sputtering. And again, there are few parameters which you need to take care of while we are going for the different applications. So like for milling, we need to have a positive beam overlap. And if you are going for the deposition, we need to have a negative overlap. And in addition, as and when we go ahead for the fabrication of a high aspect ratio nanostructures or microstructures, we observe the issue of deposition. So what happens with the material that you are sputtering, or the atoms which are being sputtered tends to redeposit on the side walls. So those are the challenges we need to look at. In addition to these issues, we also see some damage in the material. So it depends on the which ion source you are using and which material you are using. And further, we are inducing stresses in the substrate as well. So if the application is going to be stress sensitive, then we cannot use focus beam for the fabrication. And further, of course, we need to optimize the process and design the process for the anticipated functionality. Like, for example, we want to fabricate some anti-reflection proper surfaces or something like that. So we need to take into consideration the design of the nanostructure that are going to be there. And when we talk about the fabrication at nanoscale, so it poses further challenges because we are dealing all sort of issues which are exaggerated at nanoscale. Okay, so let me now begin with my work that I've been doing. So first part of my work was fabrication of sub-wavelength nanostructures, and we fabricated this nanostructure using the direct milling approach, and these nanostructures exhibit enhanced light trapping with the uh, visible light. Okay, so here is the approach that we use for the fabrication. So the substrate in this case was silicon, and we were using focus ion beam, and these were gallium ions. So what happens is we can tune the overlap of focus and beam. So basically it scans from pixel to pixel. So we can define the pixel location on the substrate. And based on the beam current that we are using in the experiments, we can control the beam diameter as well. So by controlling the beam overlap in subsequent pixels, we can control the fabrication profile that is going to be generated. So in this case, the overlap was controlled in such a way that the subsequent scan spots have a negative overlap in between. So you can see the fabrication of profile that we can generate using the focus and beam with a negative overlap. So it here shows a cross-section SEM image of the typical curved surface that we can fabricate. So using this approach, we try to vary the overlap and come across with different features of the profile of the fabrication. So if we have a large negative overlap, we can fabricate periodically spaced nanoholes. And if we go towards the positive overlap, so we can merge these nanoholes, and what we essentially are left with the cone or pillar shaped nanostructures. And these nanostructures were quite interesting to us in a sense that these were amorphous, and it is due to the focus and the induced damage. And another thing was we observed a very less implantation of gallium when we were fabricating these nanostructures. So the reason for this was the fabrication strategy that we use. So whenever we are using focus and beam for fabrication, if you use direct milling approach and don't go pixel to pixel, you are going to have a lot of implantation. But in this case, we are using a beam at a particular pixel for just a particular period of time. So that saves us the implantation of excess implantation of gallium in the substrate. And the amorphous silicon was also turned out to be quite positive for us, the application we were looking at. So we tried to do some FDTD calculations, so finite difference time domain calculations to calculate the behavior of these nanostructures with light. So we set up these simulations on a software called Numerical and tried to find out what is the behavior of these nanostructures with respect to the incident light in the visible range. And what we found out was the reflection was found out to be varying, with the height and period of these nanostructures. So essentially, we could adjust these parameters and control the interaction of light with the surfaces. So using this simulation, we were able to find out the optimal shape that we can use in the experiments. And this is again a comparison of the planar substrate and if you have these nanostructures over the surface. So by looking at the comparison, we can observe that, these nanostructures or the pillar structures help focus the light inside the substrate, or, helps in trapping the light at shorter wavelengths as well as larger wavelengths. So I think this comparison is given at different 3 wavelengths of light that was incident on the surface. And then we again tried to characterize these nanostructures experimentally and try to compare the experimental results. So, and it was quite in accordance with the simulation that we did. So for planar silicon, it was quite a good match. Of course, we saw some variation at very low and very high wavelengths of light. So I think that that's coming from the instrument, and we are not able to capture the very low or very high wavelengths of light in this setup that we used. Okay, now moving on to the next part. So we again use this direct fabrication based method for fabrication of hybrid nanomesh with graphene and gold based nanostructures. So what happens whenever you try to have a suspended nanostructures of gold, is quite difficult to have any fabrication method going down to 10 to 20 nanometers of size. So what we tried to do was we first had a freestanding graphene and we tried to puncture a few holes in graphene using focus and beam. So this was pretty straightforward. We had to just optimize the interaction of focus and beam with graphene. Once that is done, what we tried to do was we tried to deposit the gold. And the reason for this was, when you are, let's say, making a hole of 20 nanometer, and when you further deposit the gold over this already fabricated hole, you tend to decrease the size of the hole. So with this method, we can go down some 10 nanometer as well. So that's the advantage of this method. And the other thing is thickness of gold was 10 nanometer in this case. And I think if you use gold directly with focus and beam or on any other, sputtering base or EBL based method, it has a very high sputter yield, and we cannot get a good profile. So it usually tends to have a a self-organization kind of thing happening when you have a very thin layer of gold. So this method can be used for the fabrication of precise nanoholes going sub 10 20, sub 20 nanometers. And again, we try to had some simulations and try to find out what is happening with the hybrid gold graphene nanomesh. So we observed that in comparison to the planar graphene or gold surface or just gold nanomesh, it exhibits dual resonances in the visible spectrum. So that was quite interesting from the graphene perspective, as it does not show resonances in the visible range. So using this graphene gold nanomesh, we were able to show exhibit the enhancement in absorption close to 50% and enhancer factor close to 10 to the power 8 in the visible spectrum. Okay, now going to the next part of my talk. So we use similar direct fabrication of nanostructures for multiple generation for silicon. So this is again the schematic of the method that we use, and it's quite similar to the fabrication of pillar structures that we used in the previous section. So what we here did essentially was, instead of pillar, we tried to fabricate the periodically spaced nanoholes, and the shape of these nanoholes can be controlled based on the incoming Gaussian ion distribution. So essentially, we are having the Gaussian distribution of ions, and so using that distribution, we can fabricate periodically spaced tapered nanoholes. So which are visible from the scanning electron microscopy cross-section image here. So there is an advantage with tapered profile, which I'm going to come to later. And again, this is just a direct milling approach, and we are using focus and beam on a particular pixel for a predefined point amount of time. So that again leads to the fabrication of amorphous structure generation, but it has a very less gallium implantation. So if you are using these structures for optics application, it doesn't interfere much with the performance. So the phenomena of color generation was, we tried to look at these fabricated periodic nanoholes under the visible visible white light, and what happens was, based on the geometry or geometrical parameters, these nanostructures were found to reflect different colors. So essentially, what we observed under the optical microscope, so on the right hand side of the slide, you see different colors that are being generated using the different geometrical parameters. Like we can vary the period and diameter of these nanostructures, and we can generate a whole large color palette using this method. And what is the advantage? The advantage is you can go down to 50 nanometer size of these nanoholes, and you can write a very high resolution color printing using this method. So if you talk about a different coloring method, so they are pigments based or dye based, there could be multiple ways. But the advantage with this is kind of permanent, and you can have a very high resolution, which is desired in quite some optical applications. Okay, so these are some of the physical characteristics that we try to see how we can vary the geometrical parameters in order to control the color that is reflected from the structures. And this is just some SEMM atomic force microscopy images. Okay, and this was the optical characterization that we did again on the same setup. What we can do is we were able to vary the period and diameter and able to see the reflection dip that is there. So this dip can be varied across the visible spectrum, and based on this dip location, we were able to see the color that is reflected. Okay, and when you talk about color, so we need to have a quantitative measurement of color, how it is being perceived to human eye. So there is something called CIE color space. So we need to define the color space and find out how these color filters are behaving in terms of the performance. So by using this information, we were able to see that if you change the diameter or period, you are able to cover quite a large area on the color space. So the white point is basically the balance where you see the white light. So if you have a plot all around the white point, you can essentially cover most of the space on color space. So from using these color filters, you can achieve a large color gamut. And when I was, mentioning about the advantages of these tapered holes in comparison to the 2D shapes, or usually what we see with the ABL-based methods. So here's what it is. So with these tapered holes, you see a very narrow dip in the spectrum, while in case of a 2D geometry, let's say a cylinder, you see a very wide dip in the spectrum. So what it means is using this tapered structure, you can have a very narrow band of absorption in the material, and you can essentially have a large variety of colors that is being reflected. If you have a large a broad dip, we are going to have limited colors which are going to be available. And again, as I was mentioning, the advantage of this method is you can have a fabrication of colors with a very high resolution, and these are some SEM images and optical corresponding optical microscopic images. So you can vary the geometrical parameters, and you can have a large variety of colors fabricated. So application of this can be in multiple applications in optics, like you can use this particular design or array of nanostructures for optical security applications, where you are going to have, produce a particular color for opening up of a lock or something like that. And you can use this for refractive index sensing applications as well. So this was in air. So if you are going to change the refractive index of the medium, like replace it with water or any glycerol solution, you are going to observe the change in the color that you're, and you can have a sensing element or sensor out of this technique. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about the indirect implantation, implantation and wet etching based methods and for fabrication of 3D micro nanostructures with focus and beam. So as we just saw that we can use focus and beam for direct milling application, if we are going to reduce the dose of the incoming ions, we can use it for the implantation as well. So in this case, it was gallium. So in the first step, we wrote some patterns on the silicon, and when we put it in the chemical aging, so this was KOH, potassium hydroxide. And for particular duration of time, what we see was for particular design of mask, we can generate different nanostructures. Like it could be a mesh, which is suspended. It could be pyramidal structures, or it could be a combination of pyramid and hybrid, kind of flower-like shape and nanostructures. So this was quite interesting, and we tried to fabricate different nanostructures. Excuse me, for some reason I'm not able to. Okay, fine. So this was dose optimizations experiment. So here what I did was I tried to vary the implantation dose on silicon and try to see which dose is sufficient to withstand the etching. So on the right hand side, what you see is a SEM image of the area after etching. So the low dose is not able to withstand the etching, but if you go towards the higher dose, you can see, the fabrication of suspended nanostructures. So this method is based on the reason, when you implant gallium in the silicon, it acts as a dopant. So it changes the etching behavior of silicon with respect to the agents, different agents. So basically the implanted region act as a mask. So this is quite similar to what we use in the EBL method. So you have a mask and then you expose the area, then you etch it. So this is just similar, but the advantage is you don't have to create a mask here. You can just use focus and beam for directly, and you can create a mask based on your pattern. So this was the advantage with this method, and using this method, we could fabricate wide variety of nanostructures, like some examples are shown here. And you could again, based on the geometrical parameters, use these nanostructures or microstructures or hybrid structures for different applications. Like one example is shown in the bottom two figures, where these hybrid trumpet kind of structures can be used for the multicolor generation. Okay, and using this method, we also try to fabricate high aspect ratio silicon nanowire. So what you do is you have two contact pads over which you define, line dose, and based on the dose of this line, you can control the size of these nanostructures, and you could go down to 30 nanometer. That is again, limited to the sport size of the focus and beam. So if you have a newer instrument, you could even go below 30 nanometer. That is possible. And you can basically control the nanowire size with respect to the dose and current of the focus and beam. And so this fabrication, what we tried to do was, okay, this was first step where we could fabricate suspended nanostructures or microstructures, and using the focus and beam, we were further, engineer these nanostructures for a variety of shapes, and you can, vary the dose of radiation, and you can control the bending of these nanostructures. Okay, so here it shows a typical nanowire which is freestanding and cut at one end, and when you irradiate it with gallium ions, it further goes down when you have a low ion dose, and when you further increase the dose, it goes towards the incident ion beam. So essentially, you have a bidirectional bending with respect to the incident ion beam, and you can tune these parameters for different nanostructures, and you can fabricate a variety of nanostructures, and you can even go beyond just 2D or 2.5D nanostructures. Okay, and here is a live image, live video that was captured during the ion radiation. So initially, when you see the incident ions are hitting the nanowire at this particular location. So you see the nanowire is going down, and when you increase the dose further, it aligns towards the incident ion beam. Okay, and this is just a characterization, just showing that it can be bent in both the directions, and how is the dose if you want if you want to go for a particular angle. Okay, and we try to find out the microstructural, characterization, what is going on, and why does it shows the bidirectional bending. So using this information, we did some TM experiments. So we try to lift out the sample and put it on the TM grid, and try to look it in TM. So what we saw was when we don't have any irradiation on the nanowire, so it is kind of homogeneous. It's still amorphous because amorphous of polycrystalline because of the fabrication method that we use. And when we have the irradiation of ions, and we have bent the nanowire, we could see the difference in the two zones. So this is something related to the formation of collision cascade and formation of vacancies towards the irradiated surface, and formation of interstitials towards the bottom region. So that leads to the formation of stresses that we, that can control the bending. So to have a further understanding, we tried to have multi-scale modeling. So we tried to set up molecular dynamic simulations to understand the generation of these stresses due to the gallium ion radiation. And so this is what we found. So initially, when we are hitting the gallium ions on the surface, we observe the generation of localized stresses, which keeps on changing when you have more incident ions on the surface. So essentially, this is the reason, you have observation of formation of tensile stresses at the beginning, and when you increase the dose, you see the formation of compressive stresses. So that should essentially lead the bidirectional bending formation here. So we try to put this data and couple this with the FEA simulation. So the limitation of MD simulation is you cannot have a very large dimension because of the computation limitation. So we try to put the stress information from MD and put it in FEA. And essentially what we saw was there in the experiment. So at low dose, you see the downward bending, and at high dose, you see the upward bending. Okay, and now coming to the application part of this method. Okay, so using this method, as I said, based on the dose and energy of the incident ion beams, you can band the nanostructures or microstructures in different directions. And these are some of the examples that we tried. You can have a very large upward standing nanowire, or bent in particular two directions, or you can have a hook-shaped nanostructures, or any kind of design that you want, or you can have a mesh kind of structure and bend it in the desired shape you want. And this was one of the particular example that we worked on. So we were trying to fabricate something called bacterial lobster trap. So this was a design that we had in mind. So we wanted to have this particular designs, you know. So let's say we have a bacterial solution and we want to capture the bacteria for, let's say, some imaging applications or something like that. So this was a design that we had, and this is the design that we tried in the focus and beam method. So we had this mask created on the silicon by implantation of gallium. And when we do the etching, and we are essentially left with the suspended nanostructures. So to further get close to the design that we wanted to, we tried to have the cutting of these mesh structures and try to use in situ bending of the ion beam. So this was a final shape that we had, and when we try to put the bacterial solution over it, so the green what you see is the bacterial solution. So you can basically, based on the dimension of these mesh, so this was close to I think 2 micrometers. So the bacteria was 3 to 4 microns that we use in this particular case. So you can track this bacteria and use it for AFM or any particular application that you want. Okay, so to finally conclude my talk, so we use focus and beam for fabrication of periodic pillar-shaped nanostructures that reflected, a less amount of light, and it could be used for light trapping and anti-reflection properties. So we just tried, silicon for this case, but this method can be extended to different materials, and you could study the interaction of light for different optics applications. Then we further tried the focus and beam direct and fabrication method for fabrication of curve filters, and again we were able to achieve a very high DPI color resolution with this method. And this method is further extendable to different optical applications such as optical security, refractive indexes, sensing that I just mentioned before, something like that. Okay, and for bending method, so this combination of implantation, etching, and ion-induced bending can be a tremendous, technique, good technique for the fabrication of 3D nanostructures of any variety. So we can design a nanostructure for particular applications and just go ahead with the fabrication using these 3 steps. And finally, we tried to find out, using the MD and FA combined approach, what is the reason for this, and this was again can be extended to different sources and material to study and find out different phenomena or new phenomena that you can get with focus angle. Okay, so this is something we were trying to do, or I was trying to do in my final part of PhD, but this work is being carried out by another students in my Monash group for now. So using the ion-induced bending method, we were trying to prepare atom probe tomography samples. So usually what happens is you need to have a quite a large time, and you need to have specific coupon for the atom probe tomography samples. So using this standout method, what we did was we can fabricate the atom probe tomography samples on a planar substrate. So the method is again similar to the fabrication of suspended nanostructures, but with just direct milling. So in the first step, what we could do is we could fabricate suspended nanowire using the tilt of the substrate. So we could change the tilt and have a suspended nanowire fabricated, and then you can use ion-induced bending and make it upward. And in the final step, we can use annual milling with focus and beam to make it sharp, So usually the requirement for atom probe tomography is you need to have a sub 100 nanometer substrate. And again, this method is just not limited to, atom probe, or it can be used for electron microscopy, different applications as well. Like you want to study some material, but you don't want to use the lift out, because with lift out, the challenge is you need to have a, good operator scale, and many a times the samples are lost. So using this method, you can just use this and, put your sample in electron microscope, if the operator allows, of course. Yeah. So finally, to acknowledge, I had the tremendous support of my PhD advisors, my committee members, and different collaborators over the globe, and research centers, at IITB and Monash University and beyond, and of course funding from IITB, Monash, and TCS. So thank you everyone for your attention. So I'm open to questions now.